Hello, this is Jacoby and the beautiful Lera Nelson from Odessa, Ukraine. The Lord has us planted here as missionaries. And we got an email from Thaddeus and Amy Smith from Grace Bible Church of Bend, and they say that they are they're starting a movement in care of their missionaries at their church and wanted to ask us some questions. And so, since we have a pretty heavy schedule with some things that we're still trying to get caught up on and still trying to get in the groove of a regular ministry and life schedule here since I've returned just a few weeks ago, we thought it would be efficient and more pleasant for us just to answer the questions by video. So we're going to have a go at that, and the first question is, can you tell me about your calling and what is your salvation testimony? I'll try to make this really quick, but I grew up in a broken home, and I was raised kind of in a charismatic church, but grew up moving back and forth between both of my parents, and some of that time I did okay and was going to church and things. It was kind of more of a charismatic faith movement type church, and I devoured their teachings actually and kind of soaked in and believed everything I was told. And for another part of my life, I ran the streets, or another part of my adolescence, kind of ran the streets, got in trouble, doing a lot of stealing and fighting and vandalism, just coming from a broken home, growing up in a poor neighborhood, getting around the wrong crowd. Well, actually I kind of was the wrong crowd, but that was my life growing up. And then when I hit 17 years old, I left home and ended up living with various different Christian families who had taken me in. And at the age of 18, I got really confused about my life and went back to live with my mother, and things began snowballing into a life of confusion, questions, hardness, rebellion, sin, crime, drugs, and just basically glorying in the whole street life. And life got to be really cold and meaningless and empty, and all of my potential I'd flushed down the toilet. So about 6 or 7 years to live in that life, I began to look up, began to pray, and through some particular friends of mine who I lived with when I was 18 years old, God reached out to me through them, and He showed me His love. He showed me meaning and love through these people. And shortly thereafter, I had a really intense revelation of God's holiness and of my sin, and God began to get a really firm grip on my life. And that was about 11 years ago. A year later, I went to Bible college with a desire to basically know why I believed what I believed, know why Jesus was the only way. So I was studying a lot of apologetics and reading the Bible a lot, trying to answer all the questions I had about, the big philosophical questions in life. Where did we come from? Why are we here? And just to delve into doctrine, which doctrines were true, which doctrines were false, and really wanted to rightly divide the Word of God and just grow in my knowledge of the Word and grow in my knowledge of God. And had a big desire for evangelism, street evangelism and street outreach, and I did a lot of that. And had a strong desire to be a preacher and just to be a teacher of the Word, and to do that responsibly, to do that soundly. So I've had a very strong conviction for truth, and waited for a long time, knowing that I would know clearly when God wanted me to step out and just begin serving Him full-time in ministry. And it kind of took me surprise when I came here to meet her. I didn't come here on a missions trip. I came here to meet her, and then I saw the country here, and I met some other friends here, and God began giving me a burden and a desire to reach people here with the gospel, because I saw that the culture was different and the people had such a great need And being someone who is so radical about street evangelism in America, it was kind of like a new challenge, kind of like asking myself, how can I reach people here with the gospel? And the doors open up and I walk through them. When I say calling, how was I called by God to come here? It was more of just a desire and an opportunity. And when I read the Bible, I see Bible verses in black and white print, some of them in red print, that say, take up your cross and follow me, and that say, go into all the world and spread the gospel, and lay down your life as a living sacrifice, for this is your spiritual act of worship. And on, the Bible calls us to lay down the things of this world and to serve God. And I know that God's mission is global. His emphasis is for all the tribes and all the nations. And so I believe that He strategically places people in different locations, and even more and more these days we see people from third world countries going as missionaries to other third world countries, and even second world and first world countries. And God is just spreading His message in a plethora of dynamics and strategies and ways and people and locations and resources, and it's amazing. And this is just my small piece in God's big thing that He's doing. We decided to take a step of faith and go for it, and so far so good. So that's what I can say about my calling, is that I just read my Bible, I had a desire, the doors are open, and here I am. How about you?
Well, I'll be probably a little shorter. I came from the divorced home too. When I was 12, my parents got divorced, and my mom was very depressed, so she started looking for something that will make her happy. And we had friends that usually visited Baptist church, so they took us there to visit and to see what kind of church it is. And my mom kind of liked it, and she, I would say, she made me go with her. I'm thankful to her now. Maybe it wasn't the best way of bringing me to the church, but it took me a while before I understood what Jesus really meant in my life. But when I was 15, I got baptized in that church, and then I started growing in my faith. I can't say how long did it take for me to understand what is my calling and who really Jesus is and what He really wants from me. But I think it took me about 5 years. And when I was 20, there was a missionary coming to the church, and he was from some difficult place, having all kind of troubles, being a missionary there. And listening to him, I understood that this is actually something I needed in this life. This is something that I was lacking. So yeah, at that time I understood that this is my calling. And how was it? Probably mostly after reading my Bible and after listening to this preacher. All together just made me really think about it hard and made me make a decision in my life. That's how I came to understand that this was my calling. And that's about it.
Thank you. And I wanted to say that since we're both from broken homes, we're going to be a loud testimony of God's grace, who can take people from broken homes and bring them together and have their marriage glorify God and be a loud picture of the gospel.
Yeah.
So, and we definitely need grace, because marriage isn't easy, but we love it.
Yes.
So, let's see. Tell me about each of the individual members of your family. I'm assuming that this is for missionaries who have children and you want to learn more about their family, but we don't have any children yet. Those are pending, and we're just waiting for God's timing on that. So I'd be glad to tell you everything you want to know about Lieta. All you have to do is email me when she's not around, and I'll be happy to give you all that information. So If you just keep up with us on our emails and our blogs, I'm sure over time you'll learn plenty about us. Let's see here. How is it going financially, and are you meeting your target? I would say in one sense it's going really good. In another sense, we still have a need. I went fishing in Bristol Bay this summer and was able to pay off some of the debt that we'd accumulated in the last couple years. And so that feels good to be able to pay that off. Still waiting for some of that in the mail, but should be arriving any day now. And as far as support from monthly supporters month to month, we receive a minimum of 70%. Visited a couple churches in America while I was there. Still waiting to see if there's going to be any response from the people there to help us get closer to our 100% goal. So sometimes we receive a little higher than 70%. Sometimes we receive over 100%. But I think we average about 80% of our need. We've needed to raise, I think, $47,000 in 16 months. And of that 47,000, we've raised about, or the Lord's provided about 42,000, something like that. So it's encouraging when you look at it about how much God has brought, but still there's a need there, and every month we continue to go into debt a little bit, so we're just praying and working to close that gap. We will be switching nonprofits, beginning that process at the turn of the year, after we've got all the taxes in and everything. And we'll have 0% overhead with the new nonprofit we'll be working with. A friend of mine from high school started a nonprofit this year that uses sports outreach in Southern Oregon to reach out to kids in the high schools and junior highs and funnel that towards discipleship. And they had a real similar vision of ours, which is to build a recreation center in Southern Oregon. And we want to do the same thing, build a recreation/ministry center here in Odessa. So they invited us to be their first international team members. And so soon, in a few months here, we'll begin the phases on that. If you are currently supporting us, please continue the support, because like I said, we're going into debt a little each month. And even though we'll be switching where people will send their money soon, we would ask that you would continue to send to international messengers at this time, or even if you're just getting started, go ahead and do that. So I think that's about everything on where we are financially. Oh, and we do have a need. If somebody would like to sponsor us to rent a place to do an English club, we're starting an English club here in the center of the city. And just email me and I can give you more information about that if you'd like to be an official sponsor of helping us rent a room where we can hold this English club outreach. It's a very effective ministry here in Eastern Europe and allows us to meet lots of people and build lots of quality relationships with people here in Ukraine. The next question is, what's your ministry vision for the next 3 months, 6 months, and a year? Do you want to answer that one?
Oh, you will be good with that.
Our vision and mission is basically, in one word, to spread the gospel. And we found that the most strategic way of spreading the gospel here in this country is through relationships. And so we like to stretch ourselves, get out of our comfort zone, take the initiative to spend time with people, to speak into people's lives, to read our Bible with people, meet with people, teach them English, and use that as an avenue for evangelism and or discipleship. So our focus is building relationships, and we believe that the most effective way for us to do that here would be to build a recreation/ministry center. So our short-term vision right now, while we're waiting for her green card approval, is to run an English club. I'm teaching theology at a Christian university, 1st through 4th year right now. We'll probably be doing that next semester as well. That allows me to connect with a lot of young people in the city and invite them to our English club or invite them out to lunch or what have you. Also, we just moved to the center of the city and we're living right across the street from a social organization we volunteer with called The Way Home. And once a week we go out with them in a van and we bring hot soup and other things, Christian comic books, because a lot of them can't read very well, so it's good for them to have lots of pictures in their reading. and we bring them warm socks and underwear and some different clothes, and we use that as a way to establish a trust bond with them. And a lot of them have had issues over the years with trusting people who've reached out to them and to basically turn their backs on them or turn them into the police. And so we're just being faithful to serve the homeless people here, so in the future when we have the Oasis Center built, the recreation / ministry center, they'll know who we are. They'll know that we're safe people that they can trust, and people who genuinely want to be their friends and want to give them their time and help them in any way they can, and just a safe place they can go. So we're doing that outreach, and basically everything we're doing right now, we're building towards the future of building this center. So I'm doing a lot of video. I'll be interviewing people in the city, presenting this vision, explaining this vision, showing the potential for this vision and the need for something like this in this country. If you go and look at the soccer fields and basketball courts outside where the kids play in the public, they're in shambles, absolute terrible conditions. So if we can build a center that has quality courts, quality fields, quality classrooms, and a cafeteria for a soup kitchen for reaching out to the homeless, and some other things we have planned. I can tell you more about that later, such as a spiritual disciplines boot camp, and a garden in the back, an aquaponics and a worm compost garden where the homeless people can work to see the fruits of their labor and be taught Bible classes and things like that. So we have a big vision. Right now we're just waiting for her green card, so we'll be in Ukraine probably 6 to 18 months. So if you're a financial supporter, we just ask you to stick with us at least through that time. And when we're in the U.S., we'll continue to live on the support of other people who believe in this vision, because we'll be recruiting teammates and we'll be full-time fundraising and serving in ministry with SO Impact, Southern Oregon Impact, who's reaching out to the kids through sports. So we'll be doing further service in the U.S. and further training for what we'll be doing when we come back to Ukraine, and we plan to be there anywhere from 1 to 3 years. We're not sure, it's all up in the air, however long the Lord has us there preparing and raising the funds until we're fully funded to come back. Like I said, this is a big project, so we'll be doing benefit concerts, going to other concerts and conferences with booths and tables, and doing giveaways and sign-ups, and having a presentation on video, meeting with churches and corporations and Bible studies and individuals, anybody that we can find who would like to partner with us in this vision and share this vision. So this is part of our ministry, and our long-term vision would be, once we've raised those funds, to come back here, begin building, get the programs going, the English clubs and the sports activities and the holiday events, and get kids into the center to rub shoulders with Christian staff, Christian volunteers, get the homeless outreach going and the spiritual disciplines boot camp going, and then hand the baton off to an indigenous leader here in Ukraine who can run the center after we've been here, I'm guessing 5 to 10 years, God knows, and then return to the U.S. and expand the nonprofit, recruit volunteers, train other missionaries, send them here to Ukraine, or duplicate what we've already done in Ukraine or in Odessa in either other parts of Ukraine or other countries in the world, because we have a unique vision to build a rec center, and we really believe that this is a catalyst, will be a catalyst for church plants in the future, and the most effective way to evangelize people is through church plants. So this is carefully prayed through, carefully thought through. It's all about the gospel, and it's much more than just handing out tracts or doing apologetics or preaching a sermon. It's doing the hard, get your hands dirty work of building relationships with people and opening up a platform where we have more and more opportunities to do that with more young people. So that's our vision. Next question. Can you describe the highs and lows of your ministry? What's tempting you to be discouraged right now, and what are you excited that God is doing? You go first.
Well, highest and lowest. The highest probably would be right now when we have a lot of opportunities, as Jacob is going to teach theology in university. This is probably was the most encouraging for us right now, as we were looking for this for a long time. Yes, and starting doing English club downtown. It's something new. I mean, we already helped before to do English clubs, but this is something we will start by ourselves. And just see changes in people. That is very encouraging too, because we were doing discipleship with some people, and for me personally, seeing difference in them is a big thing. And also it can be the lowest, because people can really be, disappoint us sometimes, but we still should remember that to trust God, that He will always be with us, and whatever happens, it happens for His will. His plan is much better than ours. Sometimes to see that our support is not like we are sometimes slower in the support can be discouraging too, because we never know if we will have to just stop everything and go work for a living. And again, it requires trust to Christ, to keep doing what we are doing, because we had many times thinking of what will happen next, because will we have enough support continue doing the ministry, and should we start something new or should we not? But as you see, we're still here. We are still doing the ministry, God's ministry. We're still, I believe, doing His will. I mean, completing what He wants us to do. Sorry for my English. And maybe you have something to add to that.
Yeah, just a similar thing. I just kind of echo her that there's highs and lows with working with the people. Discouraging things would be when you've poured into relationships and somebody lets you down, or they just disappear all of a sudden because they don't really go down the Jesus path. They decided to kind of go in another direction, and you can't get a hold of them anymore. After you had a really great experience with them, maybe at camp in the summer, and kind of lose track of some people. So that's discouraging sometimes. But then there's other people that stay faithful over time, and so you focus on those people and keep pouring into those people. So that's really encouraging, that there are a handful of people that continue to meet with you and come around and talk to you about Jesus and all of that. So that's a huge encouragement. It was a discouraging season when we left the church we were working with. That was super hard. But by the grace of God, God allowed us to continue a good communicating relationship with them and a friendship with them. And so that's been encouraging. It was hard, but we believe God used it to do a lot of different things. I don't have time to go into them all, but I really believe God used it far more than I even have any idea. So it was a hard thing for us, but we believed it was the right thing. And it's been encouraging that we were able to find a new church, because we actually considered leaving the city. We looked around at other churches, and they just didn't have a lot of sound structure in the way they did church, didn't have a lot of sound teaching, or pastors that were, I believe, qualified to preach or even lead a church. Lack of education, or just lack of experience as a Christian, period. Or you would find ones that just didn't have good theology, really influenced by kind of mysticism or experientialism or postmodernism, kind of bordering on the emergent church thing. And so anyways, it was exciting for us to find a church body where we can plug in there and serve there and build relationships with the people there, and know that they share our convictions ecclesiologically and doctrinally and whatnot, what have you. Or at least they're a lot closer to what we believe is a sound church. So that being said, that's encouraging. That getting the new job, the pastor I was working with at the church we left blessed us with a recommendation to teach the theology course he was teaching at the Christian University. So I've been doing a lot of work on that, getting classes ready and exams ready and lessons ready and all of that. So that's an exciting opportunity. And we're also excited about reaching out to the homeless again next week. A lot of exciting things happening. About the English Club will be starting up soon, Lord willing. And then we're helping her mother and stepfather renovate their flat. They have a very small flat, but regularly let homeless people live there. So they had like 6 bunk beds in their living room. So I'm helping them put tile in the bathroom and the kitchen. I've actually never laid tile before. I just watched some YouTube videos. So please pray for me because I want to get through next week. And as we were leaving Lvov and going to the train station, I sprained my ankle really bad, and it was swollen terribly, and now it's all bruised. So I'm still kind of limping around, just trying to let that heal up. So once we get this work done with this flat and just do some final touches on getting situated in our new flat, then we'll be working into a regular routine of time with the Lord, time doing Russian lessons, time with people and discipleship and evangelism. I'm building a website. That's a secret what it's about. I'll tell you later. I'm also writing a book and working on this video project. So we definitely have our hands full schedule-wise, and we're excited about a lot of stuff. I should probably get on to the next question. So, let's see. It says, what was your background before you went overseas and planted this church? Well, she's from here, so she has a lot of cultural experience. My background was mostly street evangelism. I did a lot of street evangelism. I did a lot of writing as well. Ever since I found a call to the ministry, I was getting people's emails, getting people's addresses, and just doing newsletters, trying to encourage people in the faith, encourage people to be sharing their faith. So I've been kind of a dripping faucet, constantly reminding people and trying to stir up people to somehow be missional with their faith. So that's kind of been an MO of mine for the last decade. I also had a website where we were taking Bible questions from people for a while. I was doing Christian t-shirts, but it was very foremost in the front of my mind that I wanted to be a writer and a preacher and be on a church planting team. So a lot of my own personal study time and book reading and Bible study and ministry that I was doing, volunteering in different capacities at church, was with that in mind. So without a formal education, I've been self-educated since I graduated Bible college in 2007, and continuing to build that foundation for when God would call me into that type of ministry vocation. But I really believe that the timing was perfect for me because I spent that 7 years building up lots of head knowledge. And then once I came here and I started doing ministry, I started teaching at the church, I started preaching at the church and at the camps and at Bible studies, and I began discipling people. I began helping with the English clubs, just doing the homeless outreach. Now I was ready to start doing stuff after I'd been real patient about learning and growing in knowledge, and now just the doing season was here, and that began to stretch me. I wouldn't encourage people to jump into the doing season too soon, but I would encourage people to jump into it maybe before they feel like they're ready, because you're never going to be fully ready, and that just kind of begins to exponentially prepare you and teach you things, and kind of you're stepping into doing ministry that you feel like maybe you're not quite ready for, or you're not quite adequate for, but that's where God's grace comes in, and He begins to teach you and stretch you and just basically stand in the gap and probably hopefully take all of the glory for what He does. And He does it in such a way that the glory does go to Him and not to us. So that was my background. But a lot of my ministry preparation has been the 3 years here on the mission fields. That has done things for me in preparation that I can't even begin to describe. We actually went to a missionary training center for, it was just 3 or 4 months of intensive missionary training, and we had some really great classes in there. We did the Kairos course, we had a marriage class, we had a financial stewardship class, we had a spiritual disciplines class and a discipleship class, systematic theology and biblical counseling, and it was a worthwhile investment for missionary training. So let's see, that is the last question here on the thing. Is there anything before we go, maybe like from the Lord, that you wanted to share with the people?
Well, there is one verse I was reading today, but I actually was reading it in Russian.
What was it?
I believe it was «Имейте усердную любовь друг к другу, потому что любовь покрывает множество грехов».
That's that's love your friends because friends love you, right?
Not exactly. No. Not really.
That was part
It's,
I understood something like that. What was it?
It's written in 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 8. It's about actually love, so it was pretty close, but it's about having big love to each other, because love covers multiple sins.
Love covers a multitude of sins.
Yeah.
So we love you guys, and we thank you for your prayers. Every time I hear somebody say that they're praying for us, I'm blown away and so encouraged and rocked by that. So please keep praying for us. We would encourage you to love us also. And one of the ways you can do that is by coming here. We want to invite people to come here. Just come here for 1 year. Come here for 3 months. Come here for 6 weeks and check it out and see what God does in your heart and in your life. And so yeah, we're just praying for people to partner up with us. If you like the sound of the vision that we were explaining earlier, and you want to be a part of that in a real physically, in a real like front row seats kind of way, just shoot us an email. So God bless you till next time.